but it's those fundamental human basics of lifestyle that we have to address first. Because again, I see it with our clients, our day-to-day clients, not just the military guys and the police officers. But some people, if you haven't got nailed the basics down properly, you're always going to struggle. And that was one of the biggest things that happened to me. It was not having the basics, and I was compounding this effect of adding more weight onto dysfunction. I wonder who said that quote, right? You know what I mean? It was that was happening, and it just added up over time, and then went pop. At a point where I didn't need it to go pop. And that was the moment. That was the moment I've had enough. And it led me to a big shout out to Tommy Blom, actually, from Sweden. He was the one who introduced me to kettlebell, and then it led me to FMS and stuff like that. So it's a funny old journey, but something has to happen to you first, I think, for your journey to truly start to dive into the world. I'm sure all of us can relate to that too.
Yeah, and I think that's the tip. You had that tipping point. You had that moment where you realized you had to make a change. And I think you said something right there in that little soundbite, James, is that awareness. You realized that it was your lifestyle, things that you weren't not aware of, that was leading to that tipping point for you. And I think right now, as professionals in this space, we're trying to bring that up to the people we work with. How do you specifically, James, bring that up and get that buy-in from the people you're consulting with? Because you said something right there too, that it's not just the tactical groups you're working with, the police, the fire, the military people, just the person going into the office every day. How do you get them to become more aware that, yeah, you can go online and find a cool exercise to improve your hip mobility or your upper back mobility. Okay, I want to get my arms bigger. Those are easy. It's leaning into the fundamentals that people don't want to do. So give us some of your insights on how do you get people to lean in to start considering that and become more aware?
Yeah, sure. So this is the thing for us. So I remember this, again, it's one of those epiphany moments where I can't believe it's this simple, but this is what's happening. So I think it was after I saw you in Perform Better Germany, actually. We were talking about ideas of taking the FMS and doing stuff online. We started looking at some of the data, because just like you guys, I'm a data geek. My master's actually is in computer science. I'm a bit of a data geek when it comes to this stuff and mining whatever we saw. So what I saw was, we have two kind of types of clients, which I call them performance guys who are trying to go for a specific goal or an event or competing in a sport. And then we have lifestyles, where people just want to try and lose a little bit of weight, feel a bit better, that type of thing. And what we were finding was that a lot of the lifestyle guys we were working with weren't staying with us as long term or getting the same results as some of our performance clients were. And I was trying to figure out, how can we see the data and compare them? Because it's hard to compare somebody who's going for an elite Spartan race to somebody who's trying to lose their first 30 pounds or something like that. It was just, how do we find it? What's the data that we can all compare and contrast to what we're pulling across? And then it just hit us. I had all these spreadsheets out and looking at the data from all our clients from the last 6 months. And we saw three key things. And three things that went, oh my God, this is the light bulb moment here, and how we're struggling to keep them on board and also getting the results they really want. The first thing was walking. What we saw was, on average, our performance clients were walking between 8,000 and 10,000 steps a day. That was the first thing, compared to our lifestylers who were averaging less than 3,000. And I was like, hang on a second, we can compare this now, because it's something we can compare and contrast the data to, because it's something they can all relate to. They all need to walk around and move around. So that was the first thing. The next thing, we looked at hydration. We asked them, rather than measure their glasses, because everyone's got different ways of measuring in ounces or liters, whatever it was, we said, how many glasses of water do you have a day? Again, it came down to the performance guys were having about 7, and then the lifestyles were having more like 1 to 2 if they were lucky. That was the other thing here. And then the third thing, right? And we were looking at this all from all over the world. The data were pulling from all over, and the third thing was sleep. The performance guys were averaging 7+ hours a night of sleep. The lifestylers were literally, if they were lucky, getting 5.5 to 6, right? And I know sleep's the hardest thing. So that was the first thing we saw. It was oh my God, which then came up with the acronym, what we call it W.W.S, walk, water, sleep. Because now for us, we think it's so imperative to have these fundamental basics of walking, water, and sleep, which I'm sure we can all agree with, because in the world of corrective exercise, there's polarizing ways of thinking about things. Some guys think something's good, something's bad, same as nutrition, religion, or politics, all these things is polarizing. But I think WWS, we can all technically agree on that is something that's good for you. I think it's almost like a middle ground that you have here that we can play around with. Okay, so it's okay, this is a starting point. So we then, look at the data, look at the research. They say, good, about 7,000 steps improves life expectancy for most people. 7 glasses of water is approximately, half your body weight in ounces, give or take.
Let me interrupt right here, because what I think I love the way you're coming at this, but if you're drinking 7 glasses of water a day, you actually take up space from something else you would be drinking. So not just is it this great flush you're getting, but the hydration lesson you're getting is how many times do you reach from something wet and it's got sugar, caffeine, and a bunch of stuff you're not really going to metabolize anyway. So I love this rule of 7's, because you call it W.W., but I'm seeing 7 come all the way through there.
777 rule. That's exactly right.
I love
That's exactly what we call it. The W.W.S. and the 777 rule is what just came about. Just randomly looking at data. It was like, what's the film with like Russell Crowe? It's A Beautiful Mind, where he's got all these numbers and stuff on here. Suddenly, like basic data from all this was like sticking out on the screen for us, and we saw this. So it became W.W.S. and the 777 rule. And what we found was that if we get people walking more, they're naturally inclined to drink more water. And as they're walking more and drinking more water, suddenly their sleep starts to improve automatically. Now, I always think sleep is the hardest thing to correct. And I also get it if you've got kids, working shift, it's also super hard to manage. But we can do some little baby steps here. And what we found was when people are trying to follow a nutrition plan or like a high-end type of strength training plan, if they haven't got the basics in place, we're basically getting them to do something with their hands tied behind their backs.